If blank were made in blank. I mean, if blank character was made in Animite Tales. Today we're going to look at how to make Kirby, as in Kirby from the Nintendo series Kirby.
Kirby, 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 he's a fan of the day. Kirby, 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 I love him.
As you might have guessed today, Alex and I are kind of interested in making Kirby, and Sam, how are your feelings on
here?
How are your feelings on making a Kirby in Animite Tales?
I think he's overrated. Entirely overrated.
Cancelled. Get out.
Well,
Shoo.
that was your opinion from Sam. We won't be hearing much from him ever again.
And he's muted.
And muted for the rest of the episode. Funnily enough, if for those of you who don't know how we do this already, obviously the tabletop RPG Animite Tales, or Animite Tales, is a tabletop RPG that we have been playing and building over the last 3 years. We have dev plays where you can actually check us out and watching, playing through this game in multiple different campaign settings that I've been creating over the last couple of years. Without any further ado, we'll get right into it. The concept is based roughly on the idea that we want to try and make a version of Kirby each with our own ideas as to how we think that we would make the character using the Animite Tales system, basically creating a Kirby build. If you like any of these builds, obviously, when we finally bring out the website, the Animite Tales website, the game will actually be open and free for anyone to use and play, and therefore you might be able to see the actual official Kirby build that we will make on the website. But let's just get right into it. See, I was going to start this off, but I kind of want to hear Sam's one first, and then I might go, and then I'll leave the rest.
Audience, you have not heard the many Kirby rants that Sam has given to me, which is honestly a gift to comedy. I don't know how he manages to reserve so much unbridled hatred of this cute, innocuous.
I think we both know, but we don't have time for this episode to go into it. So Sam, take us away to a magical land of pink twee and saccharine.
You wanna know how to make this useless pink ball of fluff? Well, it's obviously gotta be spatial. It's gotta be copying. He has two abilities. I think 3 maybe if you count his flying, which is just sucking air and inflating himself like a balloon. He has the ability to suck. Which he does. Constantly.
Dude, focus.
Sorry, yeah. Pretty much he has the power to suck things into himself. And he has the power to copy powers by sucking things into himself, so it's gotta be spatial for the black hole ability. Should probably be a unique attribute where instead of it coming out of his hands, it comes out of his mouth. His spatial powers, or at least his gullet. And copying is probably the exact same, because copying is copying. Probably copying favoritism.
Okay.
Because he absorbs a power and then he keeps one power, more or less, until he takes another power. I think would be favoritism in this build anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. I see what you mean. I guess as part of that unique attribute, you could always have that, it's the favoritism. So it's like, as for those of you who don't know, copying has a time limit. However, favoritism removes the time limit for one or a couple of powers, depending on how powerful the copying user is. Although in this particular scenario, I guess you could always state that the downside for part of the unique attribute is upon taking enough damage or upon taking any damage, the user loses the thing that they copied. Because in a lot of the Kirby games, Kirby does lose the thing that he copies when he takes damage.
Take your word for it. I haven't played a Kirby game in yonks.
I've just been hating him at a distance. That's a sad thing.
just been over here hating him. Die hard.
To be honest, I quite like that build, and you kind of took a bit of my thunder, to be honest, with this build. I do
So
quite.
are you going to take my? Is that your build as well?
I was gonna go for something similar. I guess I'll go for the one that I think of quite frequently. Sort of similar to what Sam was doing, although I'd honestly, you know what? I'd trade the favoritism for ability learner. And here's the reason why. Ability learner is great, and yeah, fair enough, you can't just, absorb something and have it permanently until you take damage or whatever, but, like, I just love the idea of, like, okay, I can watch an ability and I can mimic certain factors of the ability. But I was going to say, copying with ability learner and absorption regeneration, with the ability known as actually, was it absorption? It was either absorption regeneration or absorption empowerment, but I think it's absorption regeneration for singularity absorption, or I think it's singularity regeneration. The concept is that the user takes one item and creates like a massive suction force of absorption, and it basically folds the object in on itself to the point of which it creates a small black hole that sucks things up, or at least it creates a huge vacuum within a small area. You could make a bundle of pure techniques that actually weaken and lessen the size of it, and then later make having these pure techniques have all of these downsides for it. So it's like, oh, it's an easier roll requirement because the ranges of the suction area is actually smaller and smaller. You could then have each of those eventually accompanied with the new ability that we've been coming up with, which is a modular skill, where you combine all of the pure techniques together that are all similar. So again, the suction concept of like pulling things in and so on and so forth. But then the idea behind it would then be if the user ever gets like, oh, I get a 10, so it's only like a couple of meters in front of me I can suck things towards. But I got actually a 25 this time. I can do it now up to like the full amount of range, so I don't know, like 20, 30 meters. I can just pull anything in. And then you can just have it that anything that you suck in, you get to choose one particular living organism's abilities or powers, if they had them, or even a technique that they had. But the reason why I say ability learner, and this is really important, is because in the most recent games, we've actually seen him take on certain abilities permanently. Like, fair enough, like some people say, oh, it's not actually an ability, it's just him using items and weapons. But at one point, he literally does, and this is in Smash, he does actually have the ability to turn into like a very heavy weight and then immediately drop to the ground. He has the ability to obviously pull out a sword, despite not being Sword Kirby, and he also has the ability of pulling out a mallet, despite the fact that he does not have, he has not absorbed someone who has mallet abilities or powers from his world. So he can learn permanently certain abilities and techniques, and at one point he learns how to fight in different particular ways. So I'd honestly say that he does learn over time. It just takes him a lot longer than others. So that's my idea anyway. Obviously, the same unique attribute as what Sam said, but the whole concept of like copying will only work when the user absorbs, and absorption would only happen through the mouth. But as an extra bit of flavour, the Kirby that I would be specifically talking about is a Category 1 Kirby. So I wouldn't be a normal humanoid. I'd actually be like either an alien race or even an anthropial, where their category is 1, meaning that they are no larger than 1 meter tall. Now I know people say that Kirby is supposed to be like 4 inches tall or some shit, but like others say that Kirby is actually like 4 feet or 3 feet. It's very inconsistent, but I'm just going with, he's not as tall as what we would usually consider as an average-sized human, so I'm just going to keep him in Category 1, because he's not smaller than 0.5. I don't think so, anyway, so I'm just going to keep it with, he's,
I mean, he is canonically an alien as well.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So, it makes sense for him to be, part of the, category system. Even if he wasn't going to be that size, I think, because I do think that I would allow it for Kirby because it's, if I was DMing it, he would be like sort of an alien Anthropial, where he would have like a few extra abilities that don't quite fit into the power set. Because of that, you could give him like extra Animite damage because of that.
Okay, is this your build?
No, actually. Although that's just an add-on to it. Actually, I came up with what I think it does justice to Kirby, in my opinion.
Okay.
That no one's come up with yet. Well, mainly because like the latest game, Kirby not only, Kirby, as you can see from the gifs that I've posted, he kind of like stretches himself over, the over things in order to possess them. And that's like his new thing. So I gave the idea of rubber physiology. And in rubber physiology, you have this ability called inflation. And I actually made a rubber physiology character quite a long time ago. And they have the ability inflate. And I had a couple of SPMAs, I think, called exhale, where I could also, exhale my body and also fire myself and float. Not just on water, but like potentially in the air as well. That was just like, that was a long time ago, mind you. But I think that if we could actually come up with some SPMAs for there, you don't necessarily need like the floating and spatial abilities for Kirby. You can just like have him be like malleable physiology with the mutation, so that he's like literally soft and round, and he doesn't take much impact damage. He's like like a ball, essentially a little rubber ball, and who does have the ability to like inflate himself with air and float around, but also has the ability to just like just stretch himself really large.
Yeah.
And also mold his body if necessary, because like another thing of Kirby is that when he takes on these characteristics of copying, he also like takes on like a little physical bit, and like he's still unmistakably Kirby, but he has like a few little add-ons to it, and it's not necessarily transformation, but you can have that as a little bit of flavor with the rubber physiology. Is like he's literally contorting his body.
The funny thing is with this build is I was very close to saying malleable, but the only reason why I didn't want to do that is because I was thinking to myself, someone's got to take that. Someone has to, and I was just thinking, I'm not going to take it away. And I was gonna do similar to, I was gonna pull the same kind of crap that I did last time with the Jason Voorhees one, where I was gonna go, well, actually, nobody picked up this one, so I can now say the bonus build. I'm glad that you actually did bring this up. Yes, inflation
and copying as well.
Oh, obviously, yeah. Which one? Favoritism or ability learner?
I'd say favoritism myself, but yeah, either is good, to be honest. I don't really have like a preference for that, but I'd say favoritism because then you could just like keep it up. So that's you've got that in the bag there.
Well, I think based on accuracy, I'm immediately going to have to vote for your one, because yours is probably the closest one to accuracy, because you could always have an SPMA where you just suck people in. And again, one thing that a lot of people also forget is fair enough, this is again only in Smash. Don't crucify me, people. I know that this is only in Smash, but whenever Kirby sucks people up in Smash, they immediately are popped out of Kirby after the initial like grabbing in the mouth to assimilate them, so that then Kirby can copy their abilities. But then they're then pushed out of Kirby, like he either burps them out or they just mysteriously pop out of him. And so with that particular thing in mind, that also works well in the concept of like, okay, so using rubber physiology, you can have an SPMA where you just suck people in. You grab them, you meld around them, and then you just then spit them back out. And it's like, okay, that's the tactile contact. I have now copied your powers. I quite like that one. I feel like that's closer to the lore-wise. It's more of a lore-accurate Kirby, or at least a more mechanically accurate Kirby. Again, obviously, having it that like Kirby is, instead of a human, is actually a Category 1 different type of creature, still a playable character creature. So probably, again, like, still using the alien system or the anthropial system. I'd say alien only because that, like, it kind of makes more sense that Kirby doesn't have any abilities past just being a smaller creature and maybe a couple of extra bonuses. Like maybe getting rid of intelligence, or maybe even getting rid of the ability of speech to have some extra power, like maybe super strength or something.
You literally can only say "Pull."
So, that's
It looks adorable.
That's-
That's like his superpower.
So I mean that's my opinion on it anyway. I mean, unless if Sam wants to argue this, I do personally believe that your one is probably the closest to the actual Kirby.
I'm not going to argue. I think you're entirely correct.
Yes.
The moment you brought up rubber physiology and brought up all the things, I thought, yeah, that's right. That is Kirby.
Yes!
I was keeping
2 wins in a row.
I was keeping it in the wings. I was like, is no one actually going to say it? I was like, it's why I wanted to go in the middle, because I was sort of hoping that maybe like they'd have that.
Wanted the hate train to come in first.
Oh yeah, you gotta have the hate train.
Followed by the love boat, which is used too.
So, in the terms of DM allowance, I don't see an issue with any 3 of these personally. As a DM who has DM for as long as I have, I don't see an issue with any of these, especially using this system. I just don't. I have no issue with them. But I don't know. Out of the 3 that we have, do you 2 have any particular ones that you think might be trickier to be allowed? I feel like that's an easy one, is to pick out one from these 3 that would be the harder one to allow rather than the easiest one to allow.
Actually, I did have another idea for one, but I discarded it in favor of rubber physiology, which is like, you came up with that. Actually, it's just the absorption regeneration. Like, the problem with that is that, with the copying as well, like copying via, the mouth would be kind of difficult, especially if you could just suck everything in. Or like, just generally, like, if you could suck anything, like the ability is like, oh yeah, you'll copy anything that you suck in, all of the powers. Like, with some absorption regeneration, you have a lot of suckage. So we see. So it's like, it becomes less of like a challenge and less resistance. It's like, okay, I'm touching you with my lips. You're instantly engulfed. I think that would be annoying.
I feel like, yeah, although to be fair, as I said, the way that I explained it is it's based on a level 10 ability, and it's just a bunch of pure techniques based on it. It's not exactly like a unique attribute where, I mean, the only unique attribute part is that it comes from the mouth. Theoretically, actually worsening the power, because theoretically, a character can, and actually has had this before, but they can do this, but it comes from both of their hands. And there was a point where a character actually could make 2 small singularities with both of their hands at the same time. And I was like, I actually kind of wish that it was only from the mouth. Because then it's only 1 point, and it has to only be from that 1 point. But I do see what you mean. It could be very annoying because a regeneration ability alongside copying could be conceived as a very difficult one. To be fair, I'd also argue, though, that like malleable physiology, because it makes you immune to all types of physical damage, I'd actually argue that that's actually harder because, as a DM, you'd probably be like, so you're telling me that you have like full-on physical immunity and you also have a copying ability? Okay. So I can again. So like, I'd say of equal level, those 2 could be annoying because a healing factor is just ridiculous and annoying, especially a healing factor power that does damage to people. Because absorption and regeneration, you can destroy objects or heal from sapping people's life force like a vampire. Whereas like rubber physiology, although that it does grant you a bunch of immunities, it is a bunch of immunities, and you don't gain them from like stealing stuff from other people. So it's kind of a weird one. Sam, your one, I kind of like your one because that it does have that whole concept of, and this is something that I think that both of us do actually have missing here, Alex. Sam's ability is sort of based off of the law of what Kirby's stomach is, which is an infinite bottomless void, and having a pocket dimension inside of one's stomach is just the most incredible and terrifying ability, because as we already know, if you can figure a way to get someone stuck in a pocket dimension and they can't get out, that's it. That character doesn't need to die anymore. They can't do anything forever.
Also,
Kirby,
like, if you,
Kirby's stomach, hell.
I mean, yeah, isn't that like, I think we're getting into Full Metal Alchemist territory here. It's like, Jesus, I mean, I never really thought of it like that, but yeah, if it's like, stuck in a pocket dimension, and they're permanently, if they're permanently leeching off your powers, and they just have that in their pocket, like literally just inside them at all times, like, yeah, that's, you might as well be dead. In fact, it's preferably you should be dead.
Even
because,
worse though.
This is horrible.
Even worse though is that like once they're in the pocket dimension, unless if you spit them back out, you can't recopy their abilities. But even still, it's that thing of like, it doesn't matter because they're never getting out ever again. Like, that is horrifying because you could just instantly defeat an opponent by swallowing them using a specific ability. But obviously, I will say, just for the sake of being the arsehole DM, I will say I would not easily allow a unique attribute, especially one of that specific ability and magnitude, where the user can just have a suction ability in a spatial power. When it doesn't already have one, and the ability is sucking people specifically into a pocket dimension. I always steer clear of those. And in fact, it was a thing that literally required Vale and Talos to work together to be able to do that. Whereas like a character just being able to go, yeah, my main ability is just sucking people into a pocket dimension. It's like, no, like, you don't require damage if they fail one rotation of like, a roll, like a one roll save, then they're immediately sucked up into a pocket dimension forever, and the last thing that you have to remember them by is a power that theoretically has 0 time limits. Like, that is stupidly broken. It's a good build, and it is very lore accurate to the whole Kirby thing, because most people who get swallowed up by Kirby do inevitably end up just being gone forever.
He's an eldritch being from space,
He basically
Kirby
is
the destroyer of worlds.
He doesn't send people into a madness because of the way that he looks. He sends people into a madness because of the sheer stupid magnitude of his power. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. This cuddly toy-like thing basically just swallowed up a planet. Yes, and he'll do it again. Fire! So,
Wait, little did we know, Poyo actually translates from Puff speak into, you're all going to die. My hunger grows.
It turns out that that's actually how you pronounce some of the eldritch growls from like Cthulhu, like, and it's just like, what does it say? Poyo. I want to see that now, the great old ones, and there's just a bunch of great old ones, and Kirby is just sat on the fingers of Cthulhu, just chilling out, just like, ha ha! I came back with my family, guys. Oh yeah, I've been able to speak this whole time. So yeah, I think
I want exactly his voice as well, Koreatsu, because he was going, saying, yeah, I just use that voice to like mess with people. Like, it worked. The plan worked.
And those fools believed I was a simpleton all this time.
That's the funny thing. Because I've been watching Kirby right back at you. I don't recommend it. It's very annoying. But apart from the bits from Kirby, it's good. It's just all the other characters are really for kids annoying.
Of
But
course.
just the thing that's canonical about Kirby is that he is kind of a baby. Like he's an alien, but he's not intelligent at all. Like he is just sort of like very much a child, but also has the power of a god. Like
I
it's
think
just
don't they confirm in that he's actually a Star Warrior, but he accidentally got sent to that planet hundreds of years too early because his specific species are supposed to be like, they're supposed to like grow up over long periods of time. Again, proving that he might very well be the sort of the Disneyified versions or the Nintendoified versions of a great old one, because it's like theoretically he's a warrior. He's been around for like a couple of years, and he's still in like the baby stages, and he's this powerful. Who knows what he'll look like in like a couple hundred years, and also
there's
how
just the
long.
entire planet. The entire planet is just engulfed in pink, and it's just like this fleshy mound, just like boyo.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they like eventually do some kind of crossover and they go, haha, you fools, Kirby was Majin Buu all along. Like, I don't know. It just theoretically Kirby could actually be an immortal creature as well, like because of that concept. It's just stupidly OP.
I'll say this as well, like you're not wrong. That's the thing. It's like it's perfectly well even within the show because like I've showed the fight scene in like the first episode to Sam many times to try and get him into Kirby. Hasn't worked.
I don't
But
blame him.
the battle, yeah, the battle scene just goes so hard. Like it's like he fights a freaking kaiju. With nothing, like just fire, but with just fire from his face, and he fires it into the sky. This thing that's like 100 times bigger than him, and it's like this has no reason to be this epic. This is a cute little puffball, cartoon show, and it's like, oh my god.
I feel like there's always a show like that. Like you have Doctor Who, where it's like they'll make something that didn't need to be scary. Like they made statues and mannequins scary. They made you afraid of your own bloody shadow. They made you scared of the sleep in your eyes, because at one point they actually make sleep in your eyes sentient monsters. And one particular one, they make trees scary. That they go, oh, it turns out the trees are actually trying to overgrow the planet, and one day the planet will just kill us all and just be done with us. It's just sort of entertaining itself until it eventually grows bored, and it's like, what? Who hurt you so much, writers of Doctor Who? Like, who hurt you so much that you felt the need to create all of these monsters and all of these dangerous and terrifying concepts on literally the most mundane concepts ever? And this is the exact same with Nintendo. They go, how cute can we make something? And then how also can we make this overly cute twee saccharine object now the most badass MFer we've ever made in the entire universe? And it's like, Kirby, I think theoretically is the most powerful Nintendo character that they've ever made. But
I mean, he survives the Smash Apocalypse as well, which Sam is very upset about.
Yes, which I think is fantastically hilarious, and also theoretically lore accurate as well. But yeah. Anyway, either way, I'd say that the build that is probably the one that theoretically that I would, if I had to pick out of all three of them, I would say that it would be Sam's is the one that I would say is it's definitely more lore accurate than mine. But yeah, I'd say in the terms of DM allowance, that would be the one that I would go. Probably not, mate. Either that or have a very long chat about how we have to balance it. But that's the one that I'd pick as the more difficult one. What about yourselves?
Well, I've said my piece about the annoyances, the Sam's one. It could be that the allowance that you could make is that it literally has to fit through Kirby's mouth, and being like a Category 1 creature, that's quite difficult. Like he has to like really chomp down and just get it inside there, just like really squeeze it in. Like someone has to like just bang him on the back like a bottle of ketchup. Like get inside.
You could do it so it does, because no structure does. I mean, not structure. Space does damage.
Yes.
You can get rid of pretty much all. Like you can pretty much all the abilities of spatial. All of them you could just get rid of. Because he can't tell. He can't make black holes. Not black. He can't make like teleportation rings in the air like he can do with spatial. He can go like where you can walk through it and go to a different location. You can get rid of quite a few of the powers for that, maybe.
Yeah, although theoretically, like the unique attribute part would have to take care of the level 3 and the level 0 stuff. But after that, everything else is optional. Like every other ability and function that you'd have would be optional. So at that point, it's then kind of that thing of, well, what do you go for? Well, theoretically, you'd just probably go for more buffs. Or you then, if you chose an ability that you feel like you had to take. For instance, I think Pocket Dimension... is an optional ability. Because I think Link Portals is the level 3. So, yeah, there's a possibility for it. No, honestly, I can't think. What about you, Sam? What about your opinions on our builds? Which do you think is the one that you think that a DM would be less allowing for?
As a DM myself, I wouldn't allow any of them because I hate Kirby. But I wouldn't want Kirby in my game unless he's like the worst, unless we just beat him down.
What about my original character, Burby, who's blue and not pink?
Drinks on you.
I do love me some Knight, some what do you call him, Meta Knight. So I'm okay with that. But
some Schmerby.
Of all the characters, well, actually, I'm pretty sure that Smurby is a character in the Kirby universe.
Probably.
I think he's one of the other,
probably.
one of the other color-coded balls of clouds. Say, only my own. I would probably wouldn't lie.
No, you have to choose one of ours.
Probably yours then.
Yeah, because I mean, like mine is a little cheaty.
Mostly because we can just take tons of punches. Quite, it can just kind of like absorb it. I think sometimes. I think a number of times he's fallen from space, which is kind of.
I would agree. I feel like the one that I'd allow the most is probably Alex's. If someone said I'm going to make Kirby and this is how I'm going to make them, and it's like here's the 3 different possibilities, I'll be like, go for the physiology one, the rubber one, because I've already said it just works. It just works. I've already said my piece on it, so I don't think anything else that I would say could actually work too much. Also, I'm too much of a Luffy fan not to say yes to rubber, but I mean,
that's the weird thing, because it wouldn't be using it in the way that Luffy uses it. It would be more sort of like just of absorbing damage.
Other than the balloon thing, you're absolutely right. Like, the only thing that they have in common is the balloon thing. And again, like, even that is theoretically different in the ways that they use it, because he doesn't really use it for floating. But yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
And he can swim. Kirby, so
Kirby immediately,
that's another thing.
Best boy.
It is. How can you be mad at Kirby? I'm just looking at pictures of him, and they're so cute. He's shaped like a friend. And I'm using he/him pronouns, and I technically shouldn't, because that's the thing about Nintendo. Another thing I like about Kirby is that they're so universal. like they actually haven't confirmed pronouns of whether Kirby is a boy or girl. Like in America and stuff, they say, "Oh yeah, Kirby, he yeah, definitely boy. That's definitely shaped like a boy." Whereas like in Japan, they're sort of like, "I don't know, he's a puff."
Thing.
You know?
Look, he's a space
He's a
orb
them.
from space. We don't know what they are. If she wants to be like that, who are we to define it? Like,
That's the thing we don't know about is the more Kirby takes, it, like there come a time Kirby absorbs so much, they just kind of split in two.
I feel like Kirby.
And then the Kur and B.
I feel like Kirby could be used for any pronouns, and I wouldn't be mad. I feel like this is the only character that I would actually hear like someone goes it, he, they, or she, and I just be like, yeah, because I'm not gonna ask what things Kirby are. Kirby is pink and badass. Like there are very few characters that can both be pink and badass at the same time. Or at least, should I say, very few characters can be both of those things in such a brilliant way. As the wise Jason Brody once said, I don't care if he's pink, he's freaking badass. He's brilliant. I love him, and yeah, I do think the stats are all over the place for this character. I think if you're going to play the character, you could very well have high charisma, but then having it that like almost everything is disadvantaged because you can only say one thing. Or you could very well have it that you have very low charisma, but maybe have a special ability, like a signature, where your character just looks very cute. And therefore people roll disadvantage at being angry at this character. However, if a character specifically hates the specific look or the actions of this character, they then get advantage against the cuteness of the character. For instance, King DDD. He wants to be the king, and he's always being shown up by Kirby. Therefore, in that concept, he hates Kirby. He sees through everything that Kirby is, because he can't see who Kirby is, because obviously he's more the villain, and Kirby's more of just like, the hero.
Just there.
Just there.
He's
I hate them because they're kind of similar.
I don't think Meta Knight necessarily hates Kirby. They do fight a lot, but in a lot of different circumstances. Meta Knight also fights alongside Kirby.
I mean, there's also the implication. I mean, I don't know if this is canon. This is merely just speculation, but it was implied that Meta Knight was actually the same species as Kirby.
There
like,
is
underneath all of the armor.
There is a lot of possibility of that, although they don't ever confirm if Meta Knight is the same species or a similar type of warrior. If so, that would actually imply. I mean, this is definitely too deep a lore to go into too far. But if so, this would imply that Meta Knight and Kirby, if they do come from the same race, it would actually mean that their powers are always different. Like him being able to have teleportation, bat wings, and excellent specific types of skills, and so on and so forth, are because of his maturity, but his bat wings and teleportation, as I said, are more his special power. Kirby just ends up having to be one of the most powerful abilities, which is the assimilation copying ability, because they do often confirm that Meta Knight is incredibly fast, so maybe he's more of a dexterous character and Kirby's more of a strength character. But yeah, I that's all I've got for my belief. This has been the theory part of the of the episode.
I mean, in terms of stats, I mean, canonically speaking, it'll have to be, very low intelligence. I would say low wisdom as well, being that, Kirby is a baby, essentially. And these are stats that aren't really going to be used that much. I would say that, if anything, they're a more physical sort of build, I think, strength, constitution, and dex would be the main thing. And I think that I would say probably more in terms of strength. I mean, honestly, as well, willpower could be the thing, because most of the fights that Kirby wins is through the power of friendship. So, you know, their sheer will to do nice things to people and, like, just, you know, basically make friends with everyone and shape the universe to their childish whims, like the space dictator that they are.
As much as I want to fight against that, I don't often like arguing against the concept of the power of friendship, because the power of friendship is often almost always used in things that are usually more for, like, child-friendly sort of things. And again, Kirby is a child-friendly character. Kirby is a character for, like, children's games. So again, me going, oh, I really hate that kind of concept, is just me being grumpy. So I can't really fight against that. That's fair enough. I'd say strength and con. Now, I'd say probably like 16 strength, 16 con, or 18 strength and 14 con. Because Kirby is often seen as a high strength user. I'd even argue 18 and 18 on both, because, again, Kirby being an incredibly strong character, but also being incredibly durable, even if something can bypass Kirby's incredible defenses and resistances.
Also, that'll add to his health as well.
Absolutely.
To be honest, like, because I do think that, like, Kirby, despite being small and puffy, you know, Kirby is a tank. Like, he can absolutely tank so much damage, and I think that must be due to, like, the high constitution, but also just the high amount of health that they have. And that will definitely get them by, because if they have all those milestones on their powers, they're bound to get a lot of health. And that'll just boost it more up with.
It would grant an extra. Yeah. It would grant an extra 60, and if they end up having 20 on con, that would get them a +6. If they were point buy, that means that they'd start with 15 plus 6 would be 21. Then plus those 60, that means that they'd have 81 just from their powers and character alone, and that's without any trades or proficiencies. So. Yeah.
Don't need no trades and proficiencies.
To be honest, the only trade that I would, or trade or proficiency that I'd actually ever argue for Kirby is SPMA. That's the only one that I'd argue for Kirby. If someone said to me any of the others, I'm like, yeah, I guess, kinda, but, like, the one that I would never allow anyone to, like, go, oh, I don't need this for Kirby, is SPMA. Like, SPMA is, like, you have to, especially if you're going with the either of any of our builds. You need at least 1 or 2 SPMAs. I mean, literally in my description for mine, I said that you'd need a list of SPMAs. And for yours, Alex, yours literally requires an SPMA to have the ability to have a suction for the inflation ability so powerful it can draw people in. Yeah, that's my argument for a definitive. You'd have to have an SPMA for a proficiency, which again at that point would bring Kirby's total possible maximum up to 80. You could then argue for a bunch of other stuff, like the special starship thing, the surfing proficiency, piloting. You could say sword proficiency. You could say a bundle of stuff. But again, it doesn't really matter too much. Based on the setting, you could argue for almost anything. But the main ones that I would say are character powers and obviously SPMA. Because, of course, Kirby is nothing if not a superpower martial artist.
He's a Star Warrior.
He's the Star Warrior. I think that's pretty much it for this episode, unless if anyone has anything else to say.
I don't think you want me to say anything.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, thank you, both of you, for attending this seminar on Kirby. If you guys feel like this build was not good enough, or if you think that you could come up with a better one, please inform us and let us know how you would make Kirby in another tabletop RPG, or even in this one, if and when the information of the game comes out. Have a wonderful night, and of course, as always, this has been the trio trying to make something
Bye.
Bye. That was a. Why is
See
it? This,
you in the future.
why is it that the intro was actually good? The outro was terrible this time. Ciao, ciao for now.